So it's very different. It's lead generation. But essentially, we built a mobile app to make it really easy for people to talk to their neighbors and get stuff done.
In like how did that idea occur to you in the first place?
Yeah, so I used to work in politics. I started off as an intern at the age of 16 in Senator Kennedy's office. I went from there, I became a staffer on campaigns and then a campaign manager. I ended up running for a very, very local office. And I quit politics because I was so frustrated with how bad the technology was. The most effective way to contact voters by far is knocking on their door. But right now, the technology to support that is nearly non-existent. So I was spending 3 hours every morning building lists. I then sent out canvassers for about 8 hours to knock on doors, which was great. But then I spent 4 or 5 hours every evening inputting the data, and that's not a sustainable lifestyle.
And how were you inputting the data at that point?
By hand into CRMs.
And was it like, did people have like forms that they were, giving you back?
Yeah. So they walk around with clipboards, and on it, the street names are in alphabetical order. So you get to a street, you find it in your list, and then people put X's if someone's not home, if they're a supporter or whatever. Then the worst is when you have to decipher people's handwriting.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of data transfer lost, and then it's just incredibly difficult to do.
So can you kind of, without having to show us, just because of the difficulties of that, but can you show us how, or just tell us how the app works?
Yeah. So you can imagine that right now we're living in an on-demand economy. So when people decide they want to do something, they want to do it now. So we built Polis to be a lot like Uber. And what that means is you log into the app. Once a campaign has given you access to their data, all you see is a button that says Get Started. And when you click Get Started, it automatically generates a route for you to go knock on doors. And then questions come up when you're at each door. So you can imagine if I'm at your door, I'm saying, hey Dylan, are you voting in the upcoming election? You respond, and then it goes down different decision trees. And interestingly, the new company we have doing it, they're going to the door and being like, hey, would you be willing to do a consultation? So anyone can change the question text for the campaigns, target different people or voters. And it just means the interactions at the door are super easy. And on the back end, the organization is monitoring what all of us are doing. So if you, for example, I'm not saying you would do this, but if you're sitting in a Dunkin' Donuts and you're just inputting bad data, that's the sort of thing that we would track and then alert the organization.
So how much time do you think we can save by using this?
That's a great question. So we think at a minimum you would save 15 minutes per canvasser, and at a maximum would be about 45. If you think about an average statewide race, they're trying to contact about 1 million voters. So every given weekend day, they're probably contacting about 2,000 to 3,000 voters. And so they're sending out well over 100 canvassers to do that. When you think about that amount of time, it quickly becomes 40 hours a weekend.
And so for the person who is taking all the information from the canvassers, like how much time, are they saving time as well, through what your app is providing?
Yeah, so we do automatic data input, so we're completely getting rid of that aspect of typing things in by hand. And then the bigger thing is because of our route generation, they're no longer looking at maps, circling areas, and then deciding where everyone needs to go.
And, what has been the most exciting part about doing this?
A lot. It's fantastic to see young people getting re-engaged with politics. I think people were just so frustrated with this idea that we were doing canvassing the same way that Abraham Lincoln did 150 years ago. And now we're seeing that people go out on their smartphones and after their soccer